Marisol Marie-Reyes thought she was alone. It was Saturday morning, and the big mansion was quiet. The other staff were cleaning outside, and the billionaire, Mr. Ethan Cole, had gone out for an early meeting. His fiancée, Vivienne, had left for a fashion event the night before, so the house was silent. Marie was supposed to be cleaning the large ballroom. She wiped the floor, opened the windows to let fresh air in, and checked that nobody was around. Then she did something she never did in front of anyone. She put one earphone in her ear and pressed play. A soft bachata beat started. Before she could stop herself, her body moved. Step, tap, step, tap. Her hips swayed, her hands lifted slightly. She danced barefoot across the shiny wooden floor, smiling for the first time that week. The music made her forget she was just a maid in a billionaire's home. She spun lightly and raised her arms in a bala-style move she loved. The long black hair that was usually tied up now fell around her shoulders. Her eyes were closed. She didn't know someone was watching. Mr. Ethan Cole stood at the door, silent. His meeting had been cancelled, and he returned home early. He had come to check something in the ballroom, but when he saw her dance, he stopped walking. He had always seen Marie as the quiet maid who kept her head down. But this was different. She didn't look scared here. She looked free, alive, happy. He didn't move. He just watched. Marie made another turn and froze. Her eyes opened. He was there, watching her. Her face instantly turned red. She grabbed the earphone from her ear and stepped back. I'm sorry, sir, she said quickly, breathing hard. I didn't mean to. I'll get back to work immediately. She reached for the mop, shaking. But then, something unexpected happened. Ethan didn't yell. He didn't look angry. He looked almost amazed. You dance well, he said quietly. Marie blinked, confused. She expected anger, maybe even punishment. Instead, his voice was calm. You can continue if you want, he said. Her heart jumped. Sir, I shouldn't. He kept looking at her. Not like she was a maid, but like she was someone he didn't really know yet. For a moment, the silence was heavy. Then he said, gently, What was the song called? Marie hesitated. It's called Dimelo, sir. He nodded slowly, as if trying to remember it. It suits you. She wasn't sure why, but her chest felt warm for a second. Go on with your work, he finally said, turning away. And don't stop doing what makes you breathe. Then he left. Marie stood frozen, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She didn't know what just happened, but she knew one thing for sure. From that moment, nothing in this mansion would ever feel the same again. Marie worked quietly for the rest of the day, but nothing felt normal anymore. She kept hearing his words in her head. Don't stop doing what makes you breathe. Nobody had ever said something like that to her, especially not a man like Ethan Cole. He was usually cold, serious, and always on his phone. The kind of person who made people nervous just by entering a room. The staff called him Mr. Ice when he wasn't around, not because he was cruel, but because he felt frozen, untouchable. So why did he speak so softly today? Later that afternoon, Marie entered the study to place his coffee on the desk. She usually just dropped it off and left quickly. But today, as she turned to go, his voice stopped her. Marie, she turned nervously. Yes, sir? He didn't look away from his laptop. What time do you finish today? 7 p.m., sir. He nodded. Take a 10-minute break now. You've been working since early morning. She almost gasped. He had never asked about her schedule before. He never asked about any of the staff. Thank you, sir, she whispered, still unsure if this was real. As she walked away, she could feel his eyes on her back for a few seconds longer than usual. That night, she sat on her small bed in the maid's quarters, thinking. She remembered how she had danced freely like no one existed. She remembered the look on his face when he saw her. Not angry, not disgusted, just surprised, curious, maybe even impressed. She covered her face with her hands, embarrassed all over again. But deep inside, a very tiny part of her felt seen for the first time. The next morning, Mari entered the kitchen to prepare breakfast. She expected Vivienne to be back soon. Vivienne hated mistakes, and after seeing Mari dance, Mari was scared she might somehow get in trouble. But early that morning, Ethan walked into the kitchen, something he almost never did. The chef and the other maids froze. He looked at Mari and asked, "Coffee ready yet?" She nodded. "Yes, sir, I can bring it to the dining room." He surprised everyone when he said, "No, I'll take it here." He leaned casually against the counter as she poured the coffee. The chef pretended not to stare. The other maids whispered with their eyes. When Mari handed him the cup, her fingers brushed his for a second. She pulled back quickly. He didn't move his hand right away. "Did you dance again?" he asked suddenly, without looking at her. Her cheeks turned red. "No, sir." He took a slow sip of coffee. "That's a shame," he said quietly. She couldn't think of a reply. That afternoon, she was cleaning the hallway when she passed his office. His door was open. Normally, he never left it open. As she walked by quietly, she heard him say to someone on the phone, "I saw something yesterday that made me realize I haven't paid attention to life in a long time." She didn't know who he was talking about, but her heart beat a little faster. By evening, something had changed. He didn't say much to her, but every time she entered a room, he looked up. Not annoyed, not cold, just aware of her, as if she had gone from invisible to noticed. And even though she tried to ignore it, Mari knew one thing. Something had started. Something small. Something that scared her and also made her feel alive. Vivienne returned the next morning. The sound of her high heels echoed across the marble floor like warning bells. She threw her designer sunglasses on the table and handed her expensive coat to Mari without even looking at her. "I hope everything stayed exactly how I left it," she said sharply. "Yes, Miss Clark," Mari replied. Vivienne walked through the mansion, checking everything with sharp eyes. The flowers on the table, the arrangement of magazines, even the way the pillows were placed. She liked control. She needed it. Later, during breakfast, something different happened. Ethan sat quietly, as usual. Vivienne talked loudly about her fashion event. Then she said, "Ethan, are you even listening?" He didn't look annoyed. Instead, his eyes moved toward Mari, who was placing juice on the table. For 1 second, just one, his eyes softened. Vivienne noticed. Her smile faded just a little. Mari quickly walked away, acting like she saw nothing. But Vivienne saw everything. In the afternoon, it got worse. Mari was cleaning the sitting room when Ethan came downstairs holding his laptop. "Mari," he said calmly, "could I get a glass of water, please?" She nodded. "Yes, sir." Vivienne appeared from behind, arms crossed. "You called the maid by her name?" Ethan blinked once. "She has a name." Vivienne forced a laugh, but her eyes were colder than before. "Well, I'm glad you're suddenly interested in staff." Mari kept her head down as she handed Ethan the water. Her fingers brushed his again and she quickly pulled away, scared. She could feel Vivienne's stare burning into her back. That evening, it happened. Mari was in the laundry room folding clothes when Vivienne walked in without warning. The door slammed behind her. "You seem comfortable lately," Vivienne said, stepping closer. "Smiling when you serve him, moving slower when he's around." Mari shook her head. "No, ma'am. I'm just doing my job." Vivienne tilted her head. "Yes, your job, which does not include dancing around this house like you belong in it." Mari's heart stopped. Did Vivienne know? Vivienne smirked. "Oh yes, I know things, and I see the way he's been looking at you since I returned." Mari swallowed hard. Miss Clark, I swear, there's nothing. Vivian moved closer. Listen carefully, she whispered, voice sharp as a knife. Girls like you stay in the background. You clean floors. You follow orders. You don't get looked at. Not by men like Ethan. Mari looked at the floor, holding back tears. Vivian leaned in. One more step out of line, and I'll make sure you never work in any home again. She left, slamming the door behind her. Mari stood frozen, tears finally falling. She hugged herself, feeling small. But what she didn't know, Ethan had passed by the hallway just in time to hear Vivienne yelling. He didn't catch every word, but he heard enough to know someone was crying behind that laundry room door. He paused. His jaw tightened. For the first time in a long time, something inside him burned hotter than ice. And it had everything to do with a maid who once danced like nobody was watching. Mari couldn't hold her tears anymore. After Vivian left the laundry room the previous evening, her words kept echoing. Girls like you stay in the background. Late at night, when everyone was asleep, Mari went back to the empty ballroom where she had once danced freely. But now, the room felt heavy, like it knew she didn't belong here. She sat on the floor by the window, hugging her knees, tears silently streaming down her face. She didn't hear the soft footsteps. She didn't realize the door had opened, but she felt it when someone knelt down beside her. She looked up, startled. It was Ethan. His expression wasn't cold this time. He looked worried. Without saying anything, he gently lifted his hand and brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Mari froze still, shocked, unsure what to do. His voice was quiet and gentle. Who made you cry? She shook her head. No one, sir. I'm fine. He looked directly into her eyes. Don't lie, he said softly. Tears like this don't happen without pain. Her lips trembled. She looked away. He didn't force her to speak. He just sat beside her on the floor while she wiped her eyes with shaky hands. Why do you let her treat you like that? He asked quietly. Mari's voice was weak. Because I need this job. I take care of my younger brother and sister. If I get fired, they suffer. Ethan looked at her long and silently. Something in his face changed, like he finally understood something deeper. He lowered his voice, warm but firm. You don't have to accept being hurt just to survive. Her voice cracked. I'm just the maid. He gently turned her face toward him. His eyes were kind this time. You're not just anything. Her breath caught. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were softer, mixed with relief. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then quietly asked, Can I sit with you for a while? She nodded slowly. They sat side by side on the ballroom floor in silence, not as Billionaire and Maid, but as two tired souls who finally stopped pretending they were fine. After a few moments, Ethan's voice came quietly. I don't like seeing you cry. Mari looked at him, surprised. He lowered his gaze for a moment, then said something he hadn't planned. You're important here. The words shocked her, but they warmed her heart. More than anything ever had in that house, they sat on the ballroom floor. The city lights shone through the tall windows. Can I get you water? Ethan asked. Mari nodded. He stood, brought a glass, and waited while she sipped. Thank you, she whispered. He sat again close, but respectful. If anyone hurts you here, I want to know. She stared at her hands. I don't want trouble. You won't get trouble, he said. You'll get protection. Her eyes lifted slowly. Why do you care? He held her gaze. Because I see you. Silence, warm, safe. He stood and offered his hand. Come. You shouldn't cry on a cold floor. She took it. He helped her up gently, like she might break. He pulled a clean linen from a chair and handed it to her to dry her face. Tomorrow, he said. You take the afternoon off. Rest. I can't. There's too much work. I'll arrange it. he replied. That's my job. She looked at him in a new way, not as Mr. Cole, as Ethan. He walked her to the corridor. Before she left, he spoke softly. One more thing. She paused. Please don't stop dancing, he said. Not because of fear. Not in this house. A small, shy smile reached her eyes. Okay. He watched her go, then turned back to the empty room. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. The next morning, Vivian snapped orders in the kitchen. This tea is lukewarm. Fix it. And where is Ethan? Ethan entered, calm. Vivienne, we need to talk in the study. She smirked. Finally. In the study, he spoke first. No more yelling at staff, ever. She laughed. We both know you don't care about that. I do now. Her eyes narrowed. Because of her? He didn't answer. That maid is getting bold, she said. Remove her. No, he said simply. She stays. Vivian stared at him, shocked. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. Her voice hardened. If you choose her over me, you'll regret it. I'm choosing respect, he said. Start there, or don't stay. She left in a storm of perfume and anger. Ethan leaned back, breathing out for the first time in years. That evening, in the small garden, Mary sat on the bench again. Ethan walked out with 2 mugs of hot cocoa. For you? He said. She took it with both hands. Thank you. They talked simply. About siblings. About work. About how silence can feel heavy. He said, Would you show me one step? Not now. Someday, she laughed softly. You don't dance. I can try, he replied. She nodded. Someday. They sat there until the garden lights came on, soft and warm. It was not a date, but it felt like hope. After that night in the garden, something quietly shifted. Ethan didn't avoid Mary the next day. He didn't act confused. He didn't pretend nothing had happened. In fact, he seemed clearer. When she brought his coffee early the next morning, he looked at her longer than necessary, not in a rude way, but like he was making sure she was okay. Did you sleep well? He asked gently. She blinked, surprised. Yes, sir. He nodded, satisfied, as if that answer mattered to him. Their fingers brushed as she passed him the cup. He didn't pull away. He let the touch exist, steady as his gaze. Over the next few days, his quiet attention stayed constant. When she entered a room, his eyes followed her not hurriedly, not secretly, calmly, as if he had decided there was nothing wrong with seeing her. When she arranged flowers, he stood beside her longer than needed, not speaking much but fully present. When she stretched to reach a high shelf in the pantry, he stepped beside her and took down the glass for her. He didn't drop it into her hand and walk away. Instead, he passed it gently, letting his fingers brush hers again. Deliberate this time. Careful, he said quietly. I will, she whispered, cheeks warm. He didn't leave immediately. He stayed for an extra heartbeat, eye soft, before walking out calmly. Vivienne noticed. She noticed the softness in Ethan's voice when he said, Thank you, Mary. She noticed how he didn't let anyone else handle his coffee anymore except her. She noticed how he turned his head slightly whenever Mary walked by, as though the whole house moved slower when she was near. Vivienne didn't confront him yet. She just watched, studied, waited. Her smiles became tighter, her tone sharper, but Ethan seemed unaffected. One evening, Mary was cleaning near the grand piano. The rain tapped gently against the glass walls. She didn't realize Ethan was standing at the doorway, watching her reflection in the window. When she turned and saw him, she stilled. Sorry, sir, I'll get out of your way. No, he said softly. Stay. He walked in slowly, not to work or check anything, just to be within the same space. He stood near the window beside her and looked out at the rain. This room feels different, he said. How, sir? She asked quietly. Less empty, he replied, eyes flicking toward her in a way that made her heart tremble. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. The silence between them said, enough. Later that week, near sunset, Mary walked past the terrace carrying folded linens. Ethan was standing near the outdoor fountain after ending a phone call. She hesitated for just a moment. He didn't pretend not to notice her. Instead, he turned, eyes calm and sure. "Everything okay today?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she replied softly. "You've been working hard," he said. "I notice things." Her breath caught. She nodded slowly. They didn't move closer. They didn't touch. But Ethan's eyes held hers longer than necessary, steady, intentional. And Mary had never felt so seen. From the balcony upstairs, Vivienne stood watching, her jaw slowly tightening. She saw no kiss, no hand-holding, no words she could accuse him with. But she saw something far more dangerous. He did not pull away. It happened by the fountain. Late evening. The house was quiet. The fountain lights cast a soft glow on the water, making it shimmer like silver. Mary was passing by with a basket of freshly folded towels when Ethan stepped out onto the terrace. "Mary," he said gently. She stopped and turned to him. "Yes, sir." He walked closer, but not too close. Calm, sure. "I told you to rest after finishing. You don't always have to push yourself." She lowered her eyes. "I'm fine, sir. I'm used to it." He paused. Then, in a softer voice, "Stop calling me sir." Her head lifted in surprise. "But you're my boss, maybe," he said gently, taking a small step closer. "But I have a name. Use it." She hesitated, heart beating fast. "I can't. It wouldn't be right." "It's Ethan," he said softly, like it was something he wanted her to hold. "Say it." She shook her head quickly, nervous. "No. You're Mr. Cole to me, Mary," he whispered, voice warm and firm. "Just once. Please." She swallowed, looked at him, really looked. Ethan," she said quietly. Unsure. He smiled a little barely, but it was real. Good. Her cheeks went warm, and she looked away, flustered. "I should..." She didn't finish, because he stepped forward, slow and steady, and gently touched her cheek, guiding her to look at him again. Her breath caught. He didn't rush. He didn't ask permission with words, but with his eyes. And when she didn't pull away, he leaned in and kissed her softly. It was gentle, warm, careful. A question more than a demand. The kind of kiss that made her feel like he'd been waiting, not forcing. When he pulled back just a little, Mary's face was already pink. She touched her lips in surprise. I should go," she said, blushing hard. Then she quickly turned and ran inside, clutching the basket like it could hide her heartbeat. Ethan stood there for a moment, exhaling slowly, watching the spot where she had disappeared. But he wasn't unsure. He was certain. But they were not alone. From the upper balcony, partially hidden behind the curtains, Vivienne had seen everything. She stood frozen in disbelief. Then her shock twisted into anger. She didn't scream or make a scene. Not yet. She simply whispered, "So, that's how it is now," and walked away, heels clicking like quiet threats. The next morning, Ethan had to leave early for an important meeting. Before leaving, he paused, hoping to see Mary, but she wasn't nearby. He typed a message instead. "We should talk tonight. Don't be afraid." Ethan, he left feeling hopeful, but he didn't know what was happening behind him. The moment his car drove through the gate, Vivienne made her move. She stormed into the maid's quarters with 2 security guards behind her. Mary, still sleepy and confused, stood up quickly. "Miss Vivienne?" Vivienne's eyes were full of rage. "Pack your things, now." Mary froze. "What? Why?" Vivienne stepped closer. Because I will not let some nobody steal my fiancée. You're fired. Mari shook her head. No, please. I didn't mean any. Vivian snapped her fingers, and the guards began throwing Mari's clothes and belongings outside aggressively. Mari tried to gather them, crying, Please, stop. Vivian only crossed her arms and said coldly, Girls like you forget your place. Let me remind you, your place is not here. In tears, Mari packed her small suitcase, picking her clothes off the ground. She had nowhere to go, but she had no choice. She walked out of the gate with shaky steps, wiping tears from her face. Later that evening, Ethan returned home, eager to see Mari, ready to explain himself, ready to talk to her properly. He looked for her in the kitchen. She wasn't there. In the halls, nothing. In the maid's quarters, empty. Finally, he turned to one of the staff. Where's Mari? He asked. The maid looked scared, eyes nervous. Sir, she's gone. Ethan's voice hardened. What do you mean, gone? The staff hesitated, then whispered, Sir, Miss Vivienne fired her this morning. She threw her things out. Mari left crying. Ethan went quiet, too quiet. His jaw clenched. He didn't speak. He just walked straight toward the door, because he was going to find her. Ethan didn't waste a second. The moment he heard she was gone, he grabbed his car keys and rushed out of the mansion. Staff didn't dare stop him. His jaw was tight, his eyes burning with something no one had seen in him before, fear of losing someone he wasn't ready to lose. He drove fast, checking places she might go. Her old bus stop, the street near the grocery store where she sometimes went on her short breaks. Nothing. Then he thought about something she once said quietly. Sometimes when things get too heavy, I imagine taking a train and just going until I feel lighter. Train station. He drove straight there. At the station, Mari sat on a bench, clutching her small suitcase, eyes red from crying. A train announcement echoed in the background. She had no plan. No home yet, no idea where to go. She only knew she couldn't stay where she wasn't wanted. Her train was arriving. She stood up with shaky legs and took a step toward the platform. Then someone grabbed her wrist gently but firmly. She gasped and turned. Ethan! He was breathing hard, as if he had run through every fear to get to her. Her eyes widened. Ethan? He didn't speak. He just pulled her into a tight hug right there in the station, holding her like she might disappear if he let go. She froze at first, shocked. Then her tears came quietly as she slowly hugged him back, her face buried in his chest. I'm sorry, he said in a low, shaky voice. I'm so sorry I let this happen. I never meant for you to get hurt. She tried to speak, but he shook his head gently and cupped her face, wiping her tears with his thumb. His voice was certain. You're coming back with me. She hesitated. But Vivian, he interrupted softly but firmly. We'll deal with that now. He took her suitcase and guided her to the car, not letting go of her hand once. Back at the mansion, Vivienne was already waiting at the entrance, furious. When she saw Mari coming out of the car with Ethan beside her, hand still in his, her face twisted in anger. He brought her back? She shouted. Are you out of your mind? Ethan, I told her to leave. This is my place, not hers. Ethan stood in front of Mari protectively. This is my house, he said calmly. And she is staying. Vivian stepped closer, glaring at Mari. Then she and I cannot stay under the same roof. Choose now, Ethan. Emmy or that girl. Silence. Mari trembled, looking down, ready to be pushed aside again. Vivian smirked. She was sure he'd pick her, but Ethan didn't even hesitate. I choose Mari. Vivienne's smile vanished instantly. Mari looked up at him in shock. Ethan moved slightly in front of Mari, voice strong. Vivienne, this engagement ended the moment you hurt someone I care about. Pack your things. You're leaving tonight. Vivienne stared at him, speechless and furious. You're throwing me out for her. A maid? Ethan didn't blink. No, I'm letting go of someone who never understood me for someone who does. Mari gasped softly, tears in her eyes again, but this time, not from pain. Vivian glared at Mari for a final time before storming upstairs to gather her things. Doors slammed, angry footsteps echoed, but Ethan stayed still, never letting Mari feel alone. When Vivian finally left, slamming the door behind her, the house went quiet. A different kind of quiet. Not cold, not empty. A beginning kind of quiet. Ethan turned to Mari. She looked unsure, scared, overwhelmed. He stepped closer, his voice gentle. You don't have to decide anything right now, but just know I'm not letting go. She looked at him, tears falling slowly. Why me? He gave the softest smile she had ever seen on him. Because you're the first person who made me feel alive again. Her breathing trembled. He opened his arms, not forcing, just offering. She stepped into them, and for the first time in a long time, the mansion didn't feel cold. That night, after Ethan brought Mari back home, the atmosphere inside the mansion changed. It no longer felt cold or silent. It felt like something had finally been set right. Still, Mari was quiet as she sat on the edge of the guest room bed Ethan had arranged for her. She wasn't back in the maid rooms, he had made sure of that. She was unsure how to start again, unsure if she belonged, unsure if this was real. There was a soft knock at the door. She looked up. Come in. Ethan stepped in slowly. No suit jacket now, just a black shirt with the sleeves slightly rolled, hair a bit messy, eyes calm but gentle. Mari immediately stood up. I didn't know if I should stay here, or if... You're safe, he said gently. You don't have to be afraid here anymore. Her shoulders eased a little. He took a step closer. You were never nothing, Mari. I hate that someone made you believe otherwise. She looked down quickly, voice small. I was scared that I'd lose everything. He nodded slowly. I know, but I want you to know something important. His voice softened even more. You're not alone now. I'm here. A tear slid down her cheek, not of sadness, but relief. Ethan reached up slowly, giving her a moment to move if she wanted. When she didn't, he gently wiped the tear away with his thumb. Mari whispered, Why are you being so kind to me? His eyes softened with truth. Because I care about you, more than I should have allowed myself to. She froze. Her heart beat faster. He continued, quietly, honestly. At first, I just noticed your silence. Then I started listening for it when you weren't near. And when I saw you dance, it felt like someone had brought light back into a house I didn't realize was so dark. Her breath caught. He stepped back slightly. Not to leave, but to let her feel safe. I'll wait for you to feel ready to trust me. I won't rush you, but I won't hide how I feel anymore. She looked at him with wide, emotional eyes. Her lips trembled slightly. Ethan. He waited. I'm scared, she whispered. I'll be careful, he replied softly. She nodded slowly. Then, because she was brave in her own quiet way, she whispered, Please, don't leave just yet. He smiled gently. I'm not going anywhere. He sat with her. Not too close, but close enough for her to feel not alone. That night, for the first time in a long time, she slept peacefully. Mari woke up the next morning feeling unsure at first, then she remembered she wasn't gone. She wasn't thrown out. She had been brought back by someone who wanted her there. She got dressed quietly and stepped into the hallway, nervous about seeing Ethan again, unsure of how to act after everything he said. But when she reached the kitchen, she paused. He was already there, not wearing his usual full suit, just a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled up, pouring coffee 2 cups, like he had been waiting for her. He looked up the moment she entered. Good morning, Mari, he said softly. Guy, good morning, she replied, shyly stepping in. He slid one of the cups toward an empty seat at the breakfast bar. Sit, eat, no rush. She hesitated. I shouldn't sit here. This is for, he interrupted gently, without raising his voice. For people who matter to me. Her heart thumped. She slowly, Saturday. He didn't bombard her with words. He let her take slow sips of coffee, allowed silence to feel safe. You'll never be treated the way you were ever again, Ethan said quietly after a moment. She looked down. What if I'm not strong enough to stay? He shook his head gently. You don't have to be strong alone anymore. That made her eyes water again, but this time there was warmth in it. Throughout the next few days, Ethan didn't pressure her. He simply stayed near without overstepping. He passed her in the hallway and gave her a small nod, like a quiet, I'm here. He'd pause whenever she seemed unsure. If her hands trembled when passing something to him, his fingers would steady hers just slightly, then let go gently. Little by little, she stopped flinching at her own presence in the mansion. Little by little, she started to feel like she belonged. One evening, they were in the garden again, this time not by accident, but because he had asked if she wanted a bit of fresh air. I want to ask you something, he said quietly as they stood near the low garden lights. Mari looked at him curiously. Have you ever dreamed of doing something for yourself? He asked. She hesitated, then nodded a little. Yes, but it feels like a dream that doesn't fit my reality. What was it? He asked gently. She looked down, almost embarrassed. Dance, teaching, helping people feel free the way I feel when I move. He listened like her words were precious. She continued hesitantly. Bala dancing helped me survive when life felt too heavy. I always imagined a place where people like me could come and not feel ashamed to be seen. Ethan didn't interrupt once. When she finished, she sighed softly. But that's just a dream. He took a moment, then said one quiet sentence. What if it didn't have to be? She looked up, shocked, but he only gave a small, secret smile. She didn't know yet. He had already started making that dream real. And soon, he would show her. But first, he wanted one more moment to let her heart feel safe with him. 2 days later, Ethan asked Mari if she could take the afternoon off because he wanted to take her somewhere. She hesitated for a moment, but nodded. Okay, where are we going? You'll see, he replied softly. They drove quietly through the city. Mari looked out of the window, unsure and nervous. Ethan glanced at her once in a while, watching how she curled her fingers in her lap when she was anxious. It's safe, Mari, he said gently. She nodded, still not knowing what to expect. The car finally stopped in front of a modern building with large windows, a clean entrance, and mirrored walls inside that reflected soft lights. For a moment, she just stared, confused. Then her eyes found the sign above the door. Her breath caught. She froze. Ethan, she whispered, eyes wide, hands slowly covering her mouth. He stood beside her now, watching her reaction carefully. This place was designed for you, your dreams, and the people who need them. Tears filled her eyes quickly. You did this? For me? He nodded. I wanted to give your heart a place to dance without fear. Nee, Som. He led her inside. The soft air of the studio smelled like new beginnings. The dance floor gleamed, big and wooden. Mirrors lined the walls. There was a small office with Instructor Mari Reyes printed on the glass. Mari placed a shaky hand on the mirror, staring at her own reflection, no longer a maid hiding her dreams, but a woman with purpose. She turned to Ethan, tears streaming. I don't know what to say. You don't have to, he said softly. She slowly walked toward him, voice trembling. Why would you do something this big for me? He looked straight into her eyes. Because you're someone I believe in, and someone I love. She gasped softly, hand touching her chest. He stepped closer. I love you, Mari. A soft, trembling smile appeared on her face. I love you too, Ethan," she whispered with certainty this time. He gently cupped her face and kissed her deeply but still softly, like a man holding something precious, not something to claim. She kissed him back, not scared, not unsure, but safe. He rested his forehead on hers afterward. "Teach them how to breathe again, the way you taught me," he whispered. Within a week, the Freedom Step opened quietly. Children, teens, and even adults came, people shy and afraid, just as she once was. Mari welcomed them gently and said during her first lesson, "When you dance Bala, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest with your heart." Ethan stood at the back, watching every moment like it was magic. She caught his eye once during a turn. He gave her a small, proud smile. She smiled back, assured now she was exactly where she belonged. And just when she thought her happiness couldn't grow any bigger, Ethan had one more promise to make. It happened one evening after her final class. Mari had finished teaching a group of little girls who left smiling and giggling, talking about how dancing made them feel like flying without wings. She locked the academy's doors and stepped outside, tired but glowing with quiet happiness. A sleek black car was waiting by the sidewalk. Ethan stepped out. "Long day?" he asked gently. She nodded, smiling softly. "But a good one. Come with me," he said, extending a hand. She hesitated just a moment, then placed her hand in his. He took her back to the mansion, but instead of going inside, he led her through the back garden path. The night air was cool, and fairy lights were strung above like stars had chosen to stay close. When they reached the fountain, the same one where he'd once gently insisted she say his name, where he first kissed her, she stopped, breath-catching. But now, the fountain was decorated with soft, white lanterns floating in the water, petals swirling gently across the surface. A small table with a single candle sat near it. It looked like a secret wish made real. "Ethan," she whispered, overwhelmed. He didn't rush her. He just watched her take it in. When she turned back to him, he stepped closer, close enough that the reflection of the fountain danced across his eyes. "You once ran from this place," he said softly, "because you thought you weren't meant to stay." Tears filled her eyes. He reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "But you stayed in my heart long after you left." She swallowed hard, emotion trembling in her voice. "Ethan." He took both her hands in his. His voice was low, steady. "Mari, I built walls thinking they were protection, but they were prisons. Then you danced, and suddenly the silence I lived in felt wrong. You didn't just change this house. You changed me." Her tears fell now, but she didn't hide them. "You made me feel seen," he continued. "You taught me love doesn't have to be loud to be real. It can be quiet, like soft steps on a dance floor, gentle like the way you say my name." "Mari Reyes," he said, voice shaking slightly for the first time. He slowly got down on one knee. She gasped, covering her mouth. He took out a simple but elegant silver ring with a small diamond, beautiful, not flashy, gentle, just like her. "I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life beside the woman who taught me what freedom feels like. Will you marry me? Not as a billionaire saving a girl, but as a man who found his heart in her dance." Through tears and a trembling laugh, she nodded. Yes, Ethan, I will." He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a gentle, emotional kiss, slow and warm, like everything they had shared so far. When he pulled back slightly, he whispered against her forehead, "I love you, Mari." She pressed her cheek to his chest. "I love you too, Ethan." They stood there, under the soft lights, the fountain singing behind them, wrapped in a promise that started with a dance. The Cole estate never looked so alive. Crystal chandeliers sparkled like stars inside the grand hall. A white floral arch stood at the altar, surrounded by fresh roses in shades of ivory and soft blush. Golden chairs lined the aisle, and 1,000 tiny lights hung from above, like memories glowing quietly in the air. Guests whispered as they entered. She was once a maid, but he chose her over everything. She must be special. But none of their words mattered. Today wasn't about gossip. Today was about them. At the front, Ethan stood tall in a flawless black tuxedo. There was calm in his eyes, but also unmistakable emotion. He wasn't nervous, not because he wasn't overwhelmed, but because he was absolutely certain. He had never been more sure of anything. Then, the music started. Everyone turned. Mari stepped into view, wearing an elegant white wedding gown that flowed like a soft breeze around her. Nothing too loud, just beautiful, graceful, her. Her long hair was styled in soft waves, a delicate tiara holding her veil gently in place. She carried a bouquet of white roses tied with a silver ribbon. But the most beautiful thing she wore was the way she smiled when she saw Ethan waiting for her. Ethan's breath caught. She wasn't the maid dusting corners in silence anymore. She was the woman he loved with all his heart. The woman who changed his world with all his heart. The woman who changed his world with a dance and quiet courage. As she walked toward him, their eyes stayed locked like there was no one else in the room. When they stood facing each other, Ethan gently took her hands. "I once lived in silence," he said quietly, voice thick with emotion. "But then you came soft, steady, real, and you gave my world a heartbeat again. I promised to love you in every quiet moment, to hold your heart like something sacred, and to never let your music fade." Mari held back tears and smiled through them. "In my darkest days," she said softly, "I danced to remind myself I was still alive. I didn't know I was dancing toward someone who would one day hold my fears, my dreams, and my heart with such care. Ethan, I promise to love you gently, but with everything I am, every step, every beat, every breath." He kissed her hands. She wiped a tear from her cheek. "You may now kiss the bride," the officiant said. Ethan wrapped his arm gently around Mari's waist and kissed her slow and tender, like their love, steady, deep, and real. The guests clapped, some wiping their eyes. They walked back down the aisle hand in hand, husband and wife, hearts full and steady. The reception hall was stunning. A glossy white dance floor sat beneath a giant chandelier. Soft music floated in the air. Guests cheered as Mr. and Mrs. Cole were announced. Ethan extended his hand. "May I have this dance, Mrs. Cole?" Mari smiled, blushing softly. "Always." They stepped onto the dance floor. A slow ballad-style rhythm played, not loud, not fast, just warm and beautiful. He wasn't perfect at dancing. His steps were unsure, but his hold was steady. "It's okay," she whispered with a small laugh. "Follow me." He did. Step, tap, step, tap. Their bodies moved as one, not with perfection, but with love. He watched her the whole time, like she was his favorite view. She leaned her forehead against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "I love you," she whispered softly. "I love you more," he said, kissing the top of her head. Then, gently, he lifted her chin and pressed a sweet kiss to her lips. Slow, certain, full of devotion. The guests melted at the sight. The world slowed to their rhythm. He held her like she was his safe place. She moved with him like she had found the home she always searched for. And as the music faded, Ethan whispered softly in her ear, "Dance with me for the rest of my life?" Mari smiled, her eyes full of joyful tears. "For every beat," she answered, and they stayed there, holding each other, while the room applauded the beginning of their forever. The end. Did you enjoy this story? Kindly let us know where you are watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching.